My father was a tireless advocate for the law. He was a criminal prosecutor. Some say ruthless, others say righteous. Yeah, I'm cut from the same cloth. I can't really remember who I was before I became a cop. It's my job to make bad things happen to bad people.
It's like someone took my heart and tore it right out of my chest. Why has God forsaken our family?
She may have known who it was.
I want to have my baby back.
What started as a night of babysitting turned into a night of horror for one family.
There was another young London woman murdered, and still they're looking for her killer.
It's just like the life was drained right out of us when we heard that it was her.
Lost a sister. Lost my best friend. We got cheated on seeing her get married, given birth.
We were all broken. We were all broken and doing the best we could.
They raped her, they beat her. This man strangled her, stared into her face and watched her life slip away. What kind of an animal does this?
It's a nice picture. Was this for what, her high school graduation?
Yeah.
Yes.
This picture was taken
3 days before she was murdered,
Oh, was
October
it?
3rd.
Okay.
Her whole face lit up when she smiled.
We were very, very close. We were always doing things, going to the beach. Things were good. Last thing I remember is watching her walk across the 50 yards away.
At 11 o'clock that night, she came out of the apartment building and she blew me a kiss and I blew her a kiss back. And that's the last time I saw Donna alive.
This is the stuff of nightmares that, babysitters being stalked in the night and murdered. And this is every parent's worst nightmare.
People say, Carol, you should be over it.
No.
You can't. I want to hold her, I want to hug her again. I can't take the hurt. I can't take
We would like your permission to take this case on.
You have my permission 150%.
Mine too.
If there's people out there who know something or are involved, they'll be outed.
Their expectations are so high and so much hope is resting on this. It's kind of like you could see them light up. You are my hope.
There's a lot of collective trauma in this family, but seldom do I see, so many decades later, the type of raw emotion and palpable anger. This is a family that epitomizes what this initiative is about.
I've been a cop and a professor of criminology for years, and I've used that experience to assemble a squad of civilian subject matter experts.
They must approach each case completely unbiased, to not box themselves into conventional thinking, to bring fresh eyes and new technologies to the table.
Their job, and mine, is to investigate the coldest of cold cases, the murders that time forgot.
Donna Jean Awcock. Original file number
83-125. This was the 125th murder in rural Ontario in 1983. On October 12th, 1983, Donna Jean Alcock was 17 years old. Approximately 6 p.m., she leaves her apartment here to go babysitting in the next building north. She's babysitting for a woman named Michelle who was going out to a local tavern that night. Approximately 1 a.m. now on October 13th, Michelle was driven home by a man she met at a local bar. She tells this man, wait in the car until I send the babysitter home, then you can come in. Michelle goes in, tells Donna Jean she can leave, but first gives her some money and says, can you please go to the nearby variety store and buy me a pack of cigarettes before you go home? The store is located in a commercial plaza just south of the apartment complex. By 2:30 a.m., Donna Jean never returned. Michelle goes to the store herself, and the clerk confirms, as he did later with police, that Donna Jean did in fact show up to buy the cigarettes, but that she looked terrified. The deposition is that she looked as though she had been crying. The next morning, at 9 a.m., Carol wakes up and finds that Donna Jean never came home, so she calls the police. The next afternoon, October 14th, 2 boys searching a nearby ravine discover the remains of what was suspected to be Donna Jean. When police finally arrive, they confirm that this is in fact Donna Jean's body. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled with an orange plastic bag shoved down her throat, still protruding from her mouth when she was found.
It was heartbreaking to hear the facts. It was done in such a vicious way.
An innocent young girl type of thing with her whole life to look forward to, and gone, just like that.
As the squad digs into this case, they're going to very quickly find themselves in uncharted territory. And any civilian squad that undertakes such a massive task as this is bound to only be as strong as its weakest link. So they all need to rise to the occasion and demonstrate the same confidence that got them here in the first place. Where do we go from here? This is a sex crime.
DNA.
There is DNA.
And has this DNA already been entered into the CODIS database?
It is in the CODIS database. CODIS is an acronym that stands for Combined DNA Index System. That system has 2 components: crime scene samples on one hand, convicted offender samples on the other hand. Every 24 hours, the 2 systems speak to each other and compare samples. If you're in that database and you've left your DNA at any crime scene, you will be matched to it.
And is there any links between it and any other scenes?
There has not been a CODIS hit as of yet.
Okay.
Which begs the question, does someone do this and just stop? Michelle Maynard is the woman Donna Jean was babysitting for the night she was murdered. One of the last people to see Donna Jean alive. Michelle disappeared for 6 days immediately after Donna Jean's murder.
6 days, you just kind of go underground. That seems very odd to me.
I think she would be hiding out if it was somebody she knew that did it.
If this murder had happened to an acquaintance of yours, wouldn't you be just there with open arms?
Who was this man she met at a local bar? What does he know? Why has he never come forward? Police went out and they canvassed the bars that the 2 had been at. They developed a description that enabled this composite drawing. The mystery man, as police and the media dubbed him. This was disseminated nationally. Numerous tips were received, all were checked out. Who was this man that drove Michelle home? The mystery man. A lot of things have been tried with this case and failed. So, where do we go from here? Monty?
I'm going to track down Michelle. Hopefully some more information that we can dig up here.
Because I think she needs to be spoken to, no question. Why doesn't somebody start by looking at the correlation between all of the things we have going on in this case, and how often does this come up?
Yeah, I hear correlation, I hear data. I can do this.
Daniel.
I can look at the different virtual communities, different portals, see if there's any chatter out there about Donna's murder.
I would be really interested in talking to those 2 boys, the ones that found Donna's body.
They were interviewed thoroughly and ruled out by DNA.
I think they may know more.
How did the boys know to find Donna Jean's body where it was? Everyone here knows what's expected of them. Let's start thawing this case out. Let's go.
Give it our best shot.
It's mind-boggling and incredibly frustrating to think that an innocent girl, 17 years old, was abducted in plain view of dozens of balconies so close to her own home.
There's not a lot to go on. It just seems really skinny.
This man of mystery, who is that? The woman that Donna Jean was babysitting for. What happened to her? How is it that in that short span from door to door, she disappears? The squad of civilian subject matter experts and I are examining with fresh eyes the 30-year-old murder of Donna Jean Aucock. I've tasked Monty with locating Michelle Maynard, the woman for whom Donna Jean was babysitting the night she was murdered. Michelle returned to her apartment that night with a man known only as the Mystery Man, a man who's never been located, never been even identified. In order to find him today, 30 years later, we first need to find Michelle Maynard.
There's some things that don't add up to me with Michelle Maynard. I find it very odd that police couldn't find her for 6 days after the murder.
I still don't know exactly what she told them, but she had plenty of time to rehearse the story.
Wouldn't you want to try and help? I'm looking for a missing person. Her name's Michelle Maynard. Maybe you can help me out. Doesn't look familiar at all.
I haven't seen her.
No. There's lots of different ways to find people. Like, the very first thing I do is pick up a phone book, see if there's a name and an address. You could Google them. Then you go onto Facebook. Go to places wherever people meet and talk.
She looks familiar, but yeah. Check around there, like the meth clinic, the coffee house.
I haven't found her yet, but I'm close.
I'm calling Todd. He's one of the boys that found Donna's body. He was also an ex-boyfriend of hers. Even though he was excluded by police DNA, the family still thinks that he found the body too quickly. They think he knew where to look.
Can you tell me what happened that day that you found Donna?
I had a roommate at the time. He had a dog, and we had the dog with us. So just kind of walked around there, and everything just seemed ordinary, you know what I mean? Like, headed towards the cornfield. We walked over to the gravel pit. Then we headed towards a dead-end road, and the end of that road goes to a path that leads up to Fanshawe Dam. When we left there, then that's when the dog started acting a little weird. Started whining and pulling at its chain and kind of running back and forth and stuff. I was on the riverside. We seen what looked like a body. I just stopped right there as soon as I seen what, I didn't know for sure it was Donna because I think from where I was, she was face down. You wouldn't know that that was a dead-end road if you weren't from the area. You wouldn't know that it was that secluded. It had to be somebody with a car. I honestly believe it was somebody that had to know the area.
Todd and his friend found the body quickly because they had a dog. His insight that he thought it was someone local is useful information that we need to verify. And once we do that, it may lead us to our killer.
What we're looking at here are two possible scenarios, two circles, if you will. An inner circle, or family, friends, neighbors, immediate acquaintances, and then an outer circle, a stranger.
I presume the mystery man from the bar would fit into the outer circle then.
Right. A drifter, a transient, some kind of external predator. Assessing the scene environmentally, we'll get a better sense of which of the two circles is more likely. We don't know which route Donna took to the convenience store on the night she was killed, so we're headed to the apartment block where she babysat to see if we can find the most logical one. Wally, how's it going?
Hi, good.
Tammy's husband Wally's here with us this morning. He's basically our guide on the ground. What kind of lighting in the parking lot at the time?
There was no lights outside at all.
At all?
Period, no. Nobody heard nothing, nobody saw nothing. It's almost like...
Vanished.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaky to be walking down the same hallway that Donna might have walked down the night she died.
Okay, this is the apartment she was babysitting in. And she would have come out this door and went down the stairs to leave.
So she doesn't need to walk past any other apartments on this floor?
Yeah, the next nearest exit is way down the hall.
She leaves this apartment, make a straight shot out to this stairwell here, descend the stairs, and the exit is right at the bottom of the stairwell.
Yes.
This is clearly the path of least resistance.
There's no reason for her to interact with anyone in the building or pass anyone in the building unless they're in the stairwell.
It's one thing to see this complex on a map, make some measurements. It's quite another to visit the site, stand outside the very door where she left.
She would have started over here.
My guess is that the suspect watched Donna come out of the apartment, go to the store. We know she made it to the store. That then provided him with her path of approach that he could then expect her to follow when she returned, and that's when he attacked.
Taking the route we identified, I'm going to take some measurements and pinpoint the distance between the apartment and the convenience store. I want to plot the distance against a database of similar abductions, breaking them down into abductions by family members, abductions by acquaintances, and abductions by total strangers, and we'll then see into which category Donna best fits.
Take it right to the door.
It's 108.3 meters. The best conceivable outcome of this mapping effort is that it helps us to catch a killer.
I've been trying to track down Michelle Maynard, the woman that Donna was babysitting for the night she was killed, and finally, I found her. Yeah, Mike, Monty, how are you? I spoke to Michelle. Yeah. She's willing to meet with you. I'll tell her.
Finally, we've got something. I can't wait to speak with this Michelle, find out why it is she went missing for 6 days after the killing. What we need are some new clues about what happened that night. The civilian squad and I are examining the 30-year-old murder of Donna Jean Alcock in London, Ontario. By drawing on experience from their personal and professional lives, the team is bringing fresh eyes to this case. Monty has successfully located Michelle Maynard, the woman for whom Donna Jean was babysitting the night she was murdered. I now need to meet with Michelle and find out what she might remember, and more importantly, what she may have not told people over the years when it comes to this case. Take us through that night.
I was going to the bar, so she went to babysit for me, and this total stranger was sitting with my friends, offered me a ride home.
Did you assist the police in creating that composite drawing? There was a composite released.
Yes, I did, but I guess that was no help.
Did he say where he was from?
No, I don't think so, no. You know, we got the pizza. We was eating some of it on the way home.
How much pizza was left in the box?
Maybe four slices or something after we got done eating.
In this particular case, we see some obvious examples of selective memory. She remembers there was 4 pieces of pizza left in the box, but she doesn't remember what she did in that hour that Donna Jean went missing.
We were out of cigarettes, so I said to Donna, would you go to the store and get us some cigarettes? Never thought nothing. She never come back.
How long after Donna Jean disappeared did you give a statement to the police?
That same day after I found out that she didn't come home.
And did they ever touch base with you after that for further details?
Not that I recall, no, because I was shortly after that, I left the neighborhood.
How long after?
maybe a month, maybe, or maybe a couple weeks, something like that.
Maybe a week?
I think I was on the verge of going before this all happened anyway.
Once again, she seems selectively forgetful about when and why she left the area after Donna Jean's murder. This makes me wonder if she's holding something back intentionally.
With the use of the composite sketch, I'm trying to find anybody who may know or recognize this mystery man that Michelle left with on that night. Why hasn't he come forward if he's got nothing to hide? You know of anyone that would be here right now that might have been still comes here that would have been around? The regulars are looking at composite sketch, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe you can help me out. You've been coming here a long time? I've had zero luck trying to track down the mystery man. Not surprising. It has been 30 years.
I've had Peter conduct various research to get a sense of the statistical likelihood of someone being kidnapped by an absolute stranger. I want him to then compare those figures to the data that we were able to gather at the scene of where Donna Jean was kidnapped. Did Donna Jean encounter someone known to her, or was this an attack by a random stranger?
Let's have a look here on the smart board. We have an overview. Statistics relating to the sexual assault and murder of Donna. Homicide following abduction is extremely rare. Only 0.4% of these abductions end in murder.
I mean, that's negligible, right?
It is.
Less than 1/2 of 1%.
Right. Only approximately 10% of victims taken from their home or around their home, about 100 meters radius, are taken by a complete stranger.
These sound like the two least probable scenarios statistically. Stranger abduction at or near the home, and an abduction period that ends in homicide. So combined then, what does the data tell you?
It's more likely than not that Donna was abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered by someone known to her.
As a media strategist, I'm reviewing newspapers, online materials, forums to find any connection to Donna Jean's case, to see if there were ever low-life criminals living in the area at the time of Donna's murders that we should be checking into. This cannot be a coincidence. I really think I'm onto something.
Okay, Dania, what have you got?
So I went through the news footage, the archival research, online, and I found something quite bone-chilling. There was an escaped convicted sex killer who was living in London when Donna went missing. He was convicted in the 1976 sexing of a 15-year-old and again in 1978 of a 16-year-old. He was living not only in London at the time, but around the same apartment that Michelle Maynard lived in.
To me, it's remarkable that he lived around the same apartment complex where Donna was the night she was murdered.
Was he linked to her? Did he murder her?
This is like lightning striking twice in the same place. It merits looking into full bore. That is remarkable.
He went by the alias name of Joseph James Tripp, and his real name, Joe Shepard.
We have what we call the +1 rule. Where there's one sex killer lurking, there's usually one or more alongside them. And if he's running with a crew in the area, we have to wonder what influence he could have imparted on them. I'm very curious to see who was in his inner circle. That even if they didn't know he was Joe Shepard and what he had done, would have still been impressed by this sort of criminal experience that he offered.
These sexual deviants, predators, I can see now with the internet that back in the day, it's not something you would just chat with someone. I wonder how they networked.
This has been the question for years. How did Bernardo and Homolka find each other by chance? Could all these lives have been saved? So Daniel, look deeper into this Joe Shepard guy. I want to know exactly if he's been interviewed about this case or other local unsolved cases. These guys don't just stop. I need to go back to the family and see what exactly they know about this Shepard connection. So our investigation so far has revealed a few points of interest that I need to ask you some clarifying questions about.
Okay.
A Joseph Shepard or a Joe Shepard.
Yes.
What was your knowledge of him?
That same night that Donna was murdered, Joe Shepard and Michael Maynard were all drinking together on Joe Shepard's balcony.
The woman for whom Donna Jean was babysitting the night she was murdered, Michelle.
Yes.
She had a brother,
Yes.
Michael.
Yes.
So Joe Shepard and Mike Maynard knew each other.
Yes.
Yes. He just hung around there because his sister lived there.
Okay. So he was routinely in the complex.
Yes. He had said to one of my cousins, it was a couple of days before Donna was murdered, he said, someday I'm going to have my way with her.
Her is?
Donna Jean.
I learned a number of important things. The affiliation between Michael Maynard and Joe Shepard, who were associating the night of Donna Jean's disappearance. What's also remarkable is the disclosure that Michael Maynard had made statements in the days leading to Donna Jean's murder that he was going to have his way with her.
Hi, you've reached Renee's cell phone. I can't take your call right now, but please leave a message and I'll call you right back.
Renee, I need you to look into Michael Maynard. We either need to rule him out or elevate him to person of interest, the same as Joe Shepard. If you could get on that as soon as you can and get back to me, I'd appreciate it.
It was very difficult to get any information about Michael Maynard, either in print or online. I'm still checking to see whether Michael's DNA was compared against that of Donna's killer. I did find an obituary, however, that was printed in the London Free Press in 2001. The only information about his cause of death was that he died suddenly, so any information he may have had about Donna's murder has died with him.
Hi, Mike. It's Antonella here. As I was going through the files, I came across a name that I've never heard before in association to this case. Her name is Joanne, and I think she's somebody we need to speak to. She was at the bar the same time that Michelle was there with the mystery man.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi.
It's Mike. We spoke on the phone.
Yes.
You were there that night at the Town and Country, correct?
Yes. There were 5 or 6 of us sitting at the table. The guy in question, now he was sitting at our table, but I don't ever remember hearing his name, or he seemed like a nice enough guy, like he was friendly.
Nothing weird about him?
No, not at all.
Take me through Michelle's interaction with this guy.
She's pretty drunk.
Joanne to me seems credible. She has a very clear and independent recollection of the events that night. Michelle left with this guy. The press called him the mystery man. This is the composite drawing.
That's what he came up with between mine and hers. Put the two of them together and come up with this.
So this is basically a combination of what you remembered and what Michelle remembered?
Yeah. What I was seeing in my head,
right.
He couldn't put it down on paper.
This is a great sketch, but it doesn't sound like it's the mystery man. This is a combination of 2, maybe 3 different people. I'm going back to talk with Michelle Maynard to see what she has to say about her brother's involvement with Joe Shepard. Last time I saw her, I felt she was holding back. Maybe this time she'll come clean. Did your brother Mike ever express an interest to you in any of the Alcott girls?
No.
On that night, did you see your brother Mike anywhere around the apartment complex?
No.
Joe Tripp, whose real name was Joe Shepard, was an escaped sex killer from the United States, from Tennessee.
Oh my God.
He was a priority in the United States, and he was living across from you.
Oh my God. No, I did not know that.
And Mike never brought up the name.
No.
I have no doubts that Michelle has carried this case with her over the years. But I also have no doubts that she and her brother Mike had detailed conversations about Donna Jean's murder up to the time of his death. The question that remains is whether or not Michelle has convinced herself that a certain series of events occurred that night as a matter of selective memory, or because she's decided to be deliberately misleading. To answer that question, I need her to take a polygraph exam, a lie detector test. If we provided you the opportunity of a polygraph with a private examiner,
I would take it.
in trying to track down the killer of Donna Jean Alcock, the squad and I have come to the conclusion there was most likely someone local. Michael Maynard was someone local at the time and is a possible suspect. I've asked his sister Michelle to undergo a polygraph test.
You understand why you're here today?
Yes, I do.
To confirm whether or not she's been protecting him all these years.
This goes above your heart.
Don O'Connor, he's a very well-respected and experienced polygraph examiner. What he's going to tell me, you can take that to the bank.
Please remain still. The test is about to begin.
It's not completely foolproof, but it will provide us with some insight into what she really knows and point us in the right direction and where to go from here. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
She seems to have highly selective memories of specific events. Do you think maybe where she's unclear on things, she's just making stuff up?
The two issues that we explored was, did she know for sure who committed the murder?
Right.
If someone had told her, confessed to her in the last 30 years, when she said no to that question, she was telling the truth. And also an issue, was she withholding any information? And she passed that question also. She's not withholding any information.
On the key issues, you're satisfied?
She's been truthful, yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. I hope you get the person responsible.
For 30 years, people have speculated that Michelle had something to do with what happened to Donna Jean that night. The tests confirm that's not the case.
I also found out that the police tested Michael's DNA, and it was not a match for Donna's killer.
From here on in, I'm going to start looking at who else in that housing complex, in that neighborhood, who may have known Donna Jean was responsible for her murder.
I've been looking into Joe Shepard, who was living around the same apartment complex as Michelle Maynard and Donna Jean when she was murdered. I got the information on Joe Shepard. In 1988, the police captured him and extradited him back to Tennessee. In 1995, the police investigated Shepard as a suspect in Donna's murder.
Okay.
Ran his blood sample against her DNA from her recovered body. And then he was excluded as a suspect. And he actually passed away in 2010 in prison. Shepard seemed like a perfect match, a convicted sex killer in the area that night.
It's important to investigate each lead thoroughly, to not jump to conclusions, to not get boxed into a specific theory. Joe Shepard looked like a strong suspect, but in the end, he's excluded by DNA. We're really struggling with this case now. All of our leads have come to nothing so far. Donna's case is so random, so apparently isolated. We're dealing with someone familiar with the area, who resided in the area and knew its layout, knew the dump site, knew who Donna was. Hello? Just when I thought we had run out of steam, I get a call from someone who found out what we were doing here, has some information they want to bring to us, and they want to talk.
Between the ages of 17 and 18, walking into a home and hearing men in the living room, one was talking about things he had done to girls.
How many people would have been in the room?
There was 6, 7 guys.
There's 4 reasons why people offer themselves up as sources. I use the acronym MICE: money, ideology, coercion, or ego. In this case, she's doing this because she believes it's the right thing. It's an ideology. And that is the most credible reason a source comes forward and why we need to listen to her.
I remember them talking about Donna and the apartment building on.
They mentioned the apartments. Is there any statement he made to implicate himself?
I remember them talking about the car that he was driving. He had to get painted that night. His name was.
Okay, and said this.
Yes. He was laughing about the things he did. And then I wanted to leave because I got really scared, and his wife didn't want me to leave right away because I looked scared, and she just wanted me to calm down before I left.
So he's talking about what happened to Donna. He's using the first person I. He mentions a garbage bag. He mentions a car that then gets repainted that night. This source to me seems very credible. She has a very clear and independent recollection, and I sense genuine fear on her behalf. She also mentioned an ex of hers who has his own independent recollection of these same events, but for whatever reason, he's chosen to keep it a secret. When your ex would break down and cry, what would he say to you?
That he was scared, that he knew that it was. That I better not ever say anything.
So someone has independently verified what you remember?
Absolutely.
This is remarkable new information. We need to find out what his connection was to Donna Jean, if he knew her, where he lived then, and where he lives now. I'm really wondering if he was also part of Joe Shepard's inner circle. As a cop, you learn to acquaint yourself pretty quick with the +1 rule. Where there's one, others will follow. Could be a weapon, could be a suspect. Where there's one sex killer, there's usually one or more alongside them. I'm wondering if he was the +1. Breaking developments. I've been approached by an anonymous source. She has detailed information with respect to statements made by a man in the years following Donna Jean's murder. So Monty, when I give you his name, I need you to find out A, if he's still alive, and B, if he is, where he is. Renee, I need you to look into his criminal background. See what you can find in the archives with respect to other convictions. See if they fit within the framework of Donna Jean's murder. Time is of the essence. Let's go.
Do you know by chance where he lived? What I got to do now is find this person of interest. I got a lot of contacts in London. I got his name, and I know when he left. BC, huh?
There isn't anything just with his first and last name, but I'll try a couple different variations.
And they're just gonna have to go through maybe some of their friends' connections and see whether or not anything is relevant.
It helps to have something really to pull you in a direction that you feel is making progress.
We could be hot on the trail right now. Potentially, this could lead us somewhere.
While the rest of the squad firms up our suspect's connection to Donna Jean Alcock, I'm going back to Joanne, the woman who saw Michelle leave with the mystery man the night Donna Jean was killed. It's my thought that if we can redo the composite drawing using modern technologies and get an accurate picture of this guy, that the police can track him down. So this blank face matches more or less the existing composite's head shape.
The chin is way off.
The chin is way off, so you remember that.
It's more of a wider chin.
We're going to be refining this composite drawing 30 years later using new technology. It's developed by a former LAPD and Baltimore police sketch artist. I want to use the original drawing as a referent and then just enhance it. Anything distinct? Bad teeth, good teeth, big lips, small lips?
Yeah, it's not as thin as that.
How are you with the hairline?
Yeah, that's good. He had a bit of sideburns too, though.
This is a person of interest. You don't know who he is or what value he holds in the investigation. You just know you need to find him. We are at the end. As you know, a tip was received suggesting that a man who lived nearby in the years after Donna Jean's murder was boasting about his involvement. He frequented that apartment complex. He had associates in Michelle's building. The question is, where is he now?
I found him.
Of course.
He's in plain sight, in his own name.
What do we know, Renee, about his criminal history?
Well, his last contact with the judicial system was when he was acquitted in the case of a rape of a 14-year-old girl. And based on where he was living in East London at that time, he would likely have very intimate knowledge of the dump site.
This guy lived in the area at the time of Donna Jean's murder. He had associates in Donna Jean's building. He had knowledge of and access to the dump site nearby. He was actually boasting about his being responsible for Donna Jean's murder in the years after her death, and he was arrested for the sexual assault of another teenage girl in subsequent years, acquitted, and then went in the wind. You add it all up, and it speaks for itself. I feel we are closer now than ever. People are aware, as a result of your efforts, what we're doing and are coming out of the woodwork. This case is being worked and worked hard by the police. But trust me, you've done your job here. And that's what I'm going to tell Donna Jean's family. The squad can take this case no further, and the police have received our research and analysis. If I can turn your mind back to when we first started this, and one of the first questions I asked all of you was, what do you think happened? And you said you had no idea, other than it was your lingering suspicion that someone in Michelle's family was somehow involved or covering for somebody. And we had her take a polygraph examination. And the results indicate she's being truthful.
What?
She lied.
What? No, she didn't, apparently.
She never did. Those questions include her covering for her brother Mike that have been cleared on DNA. I interviewed Michelle at length. There is one thing that she was never fully truthful about, and that is the description of the man she went home with that night. There was another witness who had a very clear recollection and provided a very good description of this mystery man, as he was known. So we made a new sketch of what he actually looked like using state-of-the-art technology.
So what he looks like.
You remember what he looks like?
Yeah, he looks just like that. Did. Now he's bald, I believe.
We can't rule out she took home a guy from the neighborhood. Either way, this is the missing link. Even without the digital age enhancement complete, Laura thinks she recognizes this revised composite as a guy who was hanging around the complex at the time of Donna Jean's murder. Who knows what other new tips will come in? We're going to immediately pass this information on to the police. We also know that a viable suspect, as a result of recent tips, is...
She knew him.
We also know that this person isn't in the DNA data bank for offenders, meaning that they have not been, since the late 90s, either in prison or convicted of a violent crime.
I'm angry, confused a bit.
I just want this person caught. I want him to look in my eye so you can see what he's done to me and my family, my dad.
There's been a changing of the guard with the OPP. There is more momentum on this case probably than ever. And Donna Jean's killer is running out of places to hide.
Like, thank God for you.
It's a start.
Well, I'm gonna make a bunch of copies of this and I'm gonna plaster it everywhere.
A tip will solve this case.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
He looks over at her and says, "You need a facelift."
The doctor went outside of his normal routine in prescribing all of the medications.
She has eye patches on, so she can't even see what anyone's doing and has to really rely on trust.
Her daughter couldn't get her to wake up. She was clearly over-medicated.
She whispers, "If anything happens to me, make sure it's not Dad.
Sir, this is 911. Can I help you? Sir, what's wrong?
I'm falling in the bathtub.
Who's in the bathtub?
My wife.
Okay, is she conscious?
She's not. She's not on a position.
Okay, sir. Sir, I need you to calm. Sir, I can't understand you. Okay, can you calm down just a little bit? Okay, your wife is unconscious?
She is unconscious. She's underwater.
Okay, did you get her out of the water?
I can't. I couldn't let the water out.
Okay, is she breathing at all?
She is not.
Okay, sir, the ambulance has been paged. They're on their way, okay? Do not hang up. What?
Martin called 911 to let them know that his wife was in the tub and that she wasn't breathing. My name is Chad Grunander, and I am the Chief Deputy at the Utah County Attorney's Office.
I need help.
Okay, sir, they're on their way. Is your wife breathing?
She is not. I am a physician. I got CPR in progress.
You're doing CPR. How old is your wife?
My wife is 50 years old. She just had surgery here a couple of days or a week ago.
What kind of surgery did she have?
She had a facelift.
She had a facelift?
Yes.
Okay, do you know how to do CPR?
I'm doing it.
Okay, do not hang...
Eventually, emergency personnel arrive at the home. They find Michelle lying down in the bathroom.
They're working on her. Martin is angry. He is screaming at Michelle, who is unresponsive. Why did you do this? Why did you have this surgery? I told you not to do it. I'm Dr. Joni Johnston, a clinical and forensic psychologist and private investigator.
Once they start performing CPR, the chest compressions cause her to expel numerous cups of water. Her body begins to pink up. They put Michelle into the ambulance and rush her off to the hospital. At one point, Martin, who was very agitated and who was screaming in the ER, actually made a very bizarre request, asking for the doctor to continue. I will give you $1,000 if you'll continue to perform life-saving efforts. And it struck this physician as very odd because Michelle was obviously deceased and she couldn't be brought back. And Martin, being a doctor, would have known that.
Michelle grew up in a Mormon family. She was kind of a golden girl, inside and out. She's smart. She played the violin. She was homecoming queen. I mean, she was somebody that you'd look in the yearbook and go, I wanted to be that person.
She had an outgoing personality. She was respected by her neighbors and loved by her friends.
Michelle met Mark McNeil at a church event. He is this, outwardly appearing, charismatic guy, very confident, handsome. The fireworks were flying very, very quickly in this relationship. And so, in spite of her family kind of wanting them to wait, very quickly after they met, they eloped and started their family. They end up having 4 biological children in the space of 5 years. They have 3 girls and a boy. And then as they began to get a little bit older, they end up adopting some children from Ukraine.
Michelle was a dedicated mother. She was so committed to these children. She wanted to make sure that they grew up having everything they could possibly want. I'm Dr. Brianna Fox. I'm a professor in the Department of Criminology at the University of South Florida. They had this very devout, church-going type of atmosphere, and that everything revolved around being good people, supporting each other, the community, and really living in this very family-oriented lifestyle.
All of her children seem to absolutely adore her and really look up to her, see her as a role model, as both a woman and as a mom. And we're very close to her.
Martin had been appointed by the governor of the state of Utah as the director of a state hospital. He also was legally trained, but he never did take or pass the bar, so he never did practice as an attorney. From the outside, it looked like a perfect marriage. They were a very attractive couple. They seemed to get along very well. He was not a faithful husband, but others in the community didn't see that. So there was a secret side to Martin McNeil.
It was very upsetting to Michelle. She would always suspect and sometimes find things. And yet when she confronted Martin, he would always just deny, 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 deny. He starts working out all the time. He starts going to the tanning salons. He is increasingly distant from Michelle. He's disparaging of her. He doesn't seem to show any affection toward her at all. Not only does she suspect that Martin is having an affair, I'm wondering how much she felt threatened by this relationship because he was acting so differently toward her.
She found an unknown phone number on his cell phone, and she actually spoke with her daughter Alexis about this, and they did an online search with respect to this phone number, and the number came back to a woman named Gypsy Jillian Willis.
She confronts Martin with this evidence, and once again, he just essentially says, "That's ridiculous. I'm not having an affair." Martin and Michelle are sitting at the breakfast table, and he looks over at her and says, "You need a facelift."
This is not something that Michelle wanted or needed. She was beautiful, usually quite confident despite her husband's behavior, and it didn't seem like she was very concerned about her looks. She was more concerned about being a great mother.
When she just looks crestfallen and stunned, he tries to soften it by saying, "Oh, well, no, it's a gift. I want to gift you a facelift."
Martin says that afterwards he was going to take her on a 2-week cruise while she recovers.
I think this really does upset Michelle. And also, I think it stirs up a lot of insecurity in her. She's thinking, oh my gosh, Martin has been working out all the time. He's going to the tanning salon. I'm not at my best, so maybe a facelift would, put a new spark back into our marriage.
Martin persisted and was pushing her on to have this surgery, and ultimately she relented and went along with it. Martin and Michelle went to the plastic surgeon, to talk about the procedures. And also with them during that meeting was Alexis, Martin and Michelle's daughter. Alexis, a first-year medical student at the time, and Martin was very overbearing.
McNeil does 99% of the talking. He tells the doctor, we want an entire facelift, her eyes, upper and lower, you know, the upper forehead, everything.
He is now telling the doctor exactly what medications that he wants to be prescribed, exactly the dosage and things that no other person would typically get to dictate to a doctor.
The doctor went outside of his normal routine in prescribing all of the medications that Martin was talking about. Those medications included Percocet and Valium, Phenergan, as well as Ambien, which is a sleep aid. And all of these drugs were central nervous system depressants that, if used in combination, would have this additive effect, which is very powerful, which could result in someone stopping to breathe or slipping potentially into a coma. And the doctor made it very clear that they were as needed. They weren't to be taken all together at once. But the doctor prescribed this set of medication because Martin, a fellow doctor, was going to be caring for Michelle.
Michelle has a history of high blood pressure. And so one of the things that the doctor recommends as part of the physical is that she wait and postpone the procedure until she gets her blood pressure under control. Michelle is really on board with that. You know, she doesn't want to undergo any kind of risky procedure.
But Martin had other ideas. He said, absolutely not. This has to happen exactly when he planned for it to occur. It was almost like he was putting the schedule that he had in his mind over Michelle's health.
Apparently there's some kind of time limit on this offer of this gift. And so he kind of bulldozes her forward into getting this facelift. You know, when she first comes out of surgery, I think she's very groggy. She's got kind of pads over her eyes. She's pretty vulnerable.
Martin was actually quite upset that she needed to stay a night in the hospital. He wanted her to come home immediately. And she was effectively blind. She needed someone with her to really care for her, to give her the post-op medications, to help her eat, to help her bathe, because she needed to recover. Alexis woke up early the next morning and went to her mother's bedside and found her mother very lethargic. Michelle went on to tell Alexis that your dad just kept giving me medications to the point where I ultimately threw up.
Alexis confronts her dad and says, I gave her medication and she threw up and I wasn't sure it got in her system and I just want to make sure she was comfortable. Just basically kind of makes excuses. Maybe I over-medicated her. This really alarmed Alexis to just see how drugged she was.
Alexis says she wants to take care of all of the medications for her mother moving forward, and her father reluctantly agrees. She can't even see what anyone's doing and has to really rely on trust.
Michelle seems kind of scared to Alexis. At one point, Michelle says, I want you to put each pill in my hand so I can feel what it feels like and I can recognize what that pill is.
She was worried that Martin was up to something. Michelle told Alexis, she said, if something happens to me, make sure it's not your father. Michelle was down to about 1 to 1.5 Percocets a day is all. She wasn't taking the Valium any longer. She wasn't taking the Ambien to help her sleep. She was weaning off the medications. Michelle was very upbeat. She was doing well. By that time, her bandages on her eyes were taken off. She could walk. She was even beginning to drive. And they talked about Michelle's plans for the day. She was going to take her kids to ballet in the afternoon. It was going to be, for all intents and purposes, a normal day in the life of Michelle and her family.
That day, Martin actually had an awards ceremony to attend. He made sure to go to the photographer and ask on a number of occasions, make sure that I am in the photos.
And he was very insistent that the photo be taken at a particular time to show that he was there. The McNeil's youngest daughter, her name was Ada. She was in kindergarten at the time. And Michelle, her plans that day were to pick up Ada from school. Rather than Michelle going to pick up Ada, Martin picked her up about 11:30 or so in the morning and brought Ada home. Martin encouraged Ada to go find her mother while Martin went into the kitchen. And she really couldn't find her mom at first until she found her in the bathtub in the master bedroom with her face up. The tub was full with water, but Michelle would not respond.
She goes out and she calls her dad. Her dad comes in and screams for her to go next door and get some help.
Martin described to the operator that he suspected his wife had fallen into the tub. She wasn't breathing. Her head was under the water, that he couldn't get her out of the tub. His description of Michelle differed from what Ada saw and from what others saw. Because when they entered the bathroom, her head was not under the water. It did not appear like she had fallen face forward into the tub. By that time, Martin had unplugged the tub and the water had drained, but Michelle was still inside the tub.
He and a male neighbor lift Michelle out of the tub. They put her on the ground, and they're both doing CPR.
Martin was a doctor. Martin was very well trained and had performed CPR a number of times at the care facility where he worked.
The paramedics get there. They end up taking Michelle, who is unresponsive, to the hospital. And in spite of attempts to revive her, they fail.
It looked like it was probably a natural death, perhaps a complication due to her recent surgery. Maybe she had passed out in the tub. But there was something that just didn't add up. And the treating physician at the ER decided to call in the medical examiner's office because he felt like there was something that was askew.
This was so shocking to Alexis because she had just called and talked to her mom that morning. So when this happened, combined with some past events that Alexis had experienced, it really raised the hairs on the back of her neck, wondering if her father had been involved.
Alexis has this overwhelming feeling that her father has something to do with her mother's death. Martin McNeil actually described to the doctor performing the autopsy how Michelle was found in the tub. And he went on to explain that she was found head down, slumped over into the tub as if she had fallen and drowned. Myocarditis is a condition of the heart which causes the heart to swell. But she did describe the diagnosis of myocarditis to be quite slight, and she then attributed the manner of death to natural causes, not a homicide, not a suicide, not an accidental death, but natural causes. It was a tragedy the day Michelle died. She left a hole in so many people's hearts.
About a week after Michelle's death, he asked his oldest daughter, Rachel, to meet him at the temple to pray that they will find the right nanny. Rachel thinks this is a little bit odd, but she agrees and she meets her dad.
And when they were at the temple, a woman walked up to them and they engaged in some small talk. And Martin asked for this woman's name, and her name was Gypsy Jillian Willis.
Martin, acts kind of surprised to see her, tells Rachel that he used to work with this young woman, and at this point, he excuses himself to go to the bathroom. And Gypsy is trying to kind of ingratiate herself with Rachel. Rachel, of course, is consumed with grief at this point. She's not interested in engaging with anybody. Martin says he's going to put out flyers, and the whole family is going to be involved in interviewing for this nanny. Interestingly enough, the only person who shows up for this interview is this same woman who showed up outside the temple. He announces to the kids that he has hired Jillian to be the new nanny. It's pretty apparent pretty quickly after Gypsy moves in that she is not only not qualified to be a nanny, she's not interested in being a nanny.
She made one meal, and after that refuses to help the children, watch the children, engage with them, cook for them, clean for them. She basically just hangs around the house.
When Alexis learned that the nanny her dad hired was named Gypsy Jillian Willis, she immediately knew that name, and she knew that that was the woman that her mother had suspected Martin of having an affair with. And so she confronted her father and said, "Dad, you are not to bring Gypsy Jillian Willis into our home."
Instead of reacting and getting rid of Gypsy, her father kicks Alexis, another one of her sisters, out of the home just for raising their very legitimate concerns.
They went up to Idaho, which is where Gypsy was from, and she introduced him to her family. And within weeks of Michelle's death, Martin made a big public display in the presence of her family at a local restaurant where on bended knee he asked Gypsy to marry him.
Gypsy has not paid her taxes for the past 7 years. And Martin is concerned that if they marry, he's going to be assuming this debt. He comes up with a plan to send one of his adopted daughters, Giselle, back to Ukraine, allegedly for the summer, to visit some of her biological relatives, with the understanding that somebody's going to go pick her up at the end of the summer. And so Alexis escorts Giselle to Ukraine. Martin asked Alexa to bring Giselle's passport back. His reasoning for this is she might lose it. He changes the birth date by 20 years. Jillian now becomes Jillian Giselle McNeil, as opposed to Gypsy Jillian Willis. And that is their big plan, to essentially leave Giselle in Ukraine for Gypsy to assume Giselle's identity, which would, of course, kill a number of birds with one stone. It would allow him to rid himself of one of his adopted daughters. It would allow Jillian to start with a clean slate, and it would allow the two of them to get married.
Martin's daughters believed that there was something very suspicious that had gone on with respect to their mother's death. They believed that Martin was involved in some fashion, but they weren't sure how. For some time, local law enforcement authorities didn't take the case very seriously. They weren't approaching the case as if it were a homicide, because the medical examiner first ruled that she had died of natural causes.
She goes and she gets her, and she brings her back. This is basically a federal offense. And so Martin and Gypsy are charged with this, and they're both convicted.
Both Gypsy and Martin were sentenced to federal prison. I started working on the case against Martin McNeil in about 2010. Investigators in our office decided to take a look into the circumstances surrounding Michelle's death and started to connect a few dots.
This is somebody who has been lying and deceiving people for much of his adult life. Martin McNeil's path to becoming a doctor certainly wasn't straightforward. He initially, out of high school, enrolled in the military. He lied about his age to get into the military. He was there for a couple of years, and then he was discharged after he was diagnosed with latent schizophrenia.
He was able to receive disability and benefits despite the fact that he was then employed and receiving ample compensation as a medical doctor.
Martin decided that he was going to apply for a military ID card for Gypsy. And in the application, they alleged that they were married. And the marriage date that Martin McNeil put down was the date of Michelle's funeral. And someone with that sort of mindset, that arrogance and narcissism, who is a doctor and who is charged with caring for others, that kind of a person is very dangerous.
They find out that Martin has a fraud conviction, that at one point he had stolen checks and he had spent $35,000 and it was incarcerated for several months. When they look at his career, they find out that he lied about his grades to get into medical school. They find out that he had been accused of Medicare fraud. It's like a snowball.
It seemed to them that the medical examiner's office hadn't thoroughly looked at the toxicology reports. The drugs that were found in Michelle's system were very alarming. Alexis had spoken with her mother that morning. She had plans for the day. So for her to have all those drugs in her system, especially the Ambien, raised some serious concerns about how or why she took those drugs. There were periods of time that morning when Martin was unaccounted for at work, and he could have easily traveled home and administered those drugs or persuaded Michelle to take them, put them in her food or perhaps in a drink, and then return to work before picking up Ada. He amended the cause of death to a combination of myocarditis and drug toxicity, and he moved the manner of death from natural causes to undetermined. And that was a big step in the investigation. We ultimately found another medical examiner in the state of Florida. He had worked on a number of high-profile cases. His name was Dr. Joshua Perper. Dr. Perper came back with the opinion that Michelle had not died from myocarditis. She had clearly died from drowning, and that the drugs in her system had facilitated the drowning. It was a big breakthrough in the case. We learned that Martin had had an affair with another woman. Martin had told this woman that he knew how to kill someone in plain sight and make it look like it was a natural death. He could administer something to that individual and it would look like a heart attack. She came forward and she told us about what Martin had said.
When he was doing CPR, people said they never saw him administering the life-saving breaths that were necessary, never saw Michelle's chest rising, things that really made them think that he was essentially trying to withhold any type of life-saving care from her.
One of the things the neighbor says later is that Michelle has a lot of mucus on her face. And yet, at no point in time does Martin have any mucus on his face. So that seems a little bit odd or suspicious to him.
Okay, they're on their way. Is your wife breathing?
She is not. I am a physician. CPR in progress.
For reasons not entirely known, he gave an inaccurate address, which delayed the response of EMTs and emergency personnel from arriving at the house.
Do not hang up. What? Sir?
I'm quite certain that Martin was probably surprised to some degree because I think he thought in his mind he had gotten away with murdering his wife. Given his personality, he was very arrogant, quite narcissistic. I think that he thought that he had probably covered his steps enough. By the time we brought charges against Martin McNeil and went to trial, it was about 6.5 years after Michelle's death. In the state of Utah, the legislature had recently changed the law to allow cameras in the courtroom, and it was the first live televised jury trial in the state of Utah. We knew it was a tough case. We didn't know how the jury would react to the evidence. And so we had our concerns about whether or not we would be successful. The biggest challenge we faced in this trial was proving that Michelle McNeil actually died by way of homicide, that someone was responsible for her death, that it wasn't naturally caused or it wasn't due to an accident. We had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she died at the hands of another. And then on top of that it was Martin McNeil that killed her. They really tried to focus the jury's attention on the initial findings that Michelle had died from hypertension and myocarditis. So we had to disprove that that had happened. They also tried to present an alibi defense that Martin's whereabouts could be proven that morning and that he wasn't with his wife, but it fell very flat and it didn't prove anything.
His own daughters were the star in terms of the prosecution.
The message from her father to Michelle was, I'm coming home, I'll fix you a lunch, I'll help take care of you, stay home, stay put, everything's going to be fine. And that was a bizarre message. Because Michelle was doing fine at that point. There was no reason for Martin to be concerned. And it also let the jury know that Martin had plans to go home that morning.
One thing that really struck me about this case is the fact that Martin McNeil's own daughters were so dedicated and motivated.
She testified about how well her mom was doing after the surgery, how she was down to 1.5 Percocets per day, how she wasn't taking the Valium, she wasn't taking the Ambien any longer, that she was recovering well. Another daughter that talked about her interactions with Michelle on the morning of her death. She seemed upbeat, she had plans for the day, and of course you put that together with her being found dead just a few short hours later with all those drugs in her system, it was clear that something suspicious had happened. Rachel testified about Martin's explanation to her about how Michelle was found in the tub, which differed from the eyewitness testimony.
Another witness was his son's girlfriend, Elaine. She testified to the fact that she had been over at the McNeil house right after Michelle had died, and how dramatic As she described it, Martin he wanted all the medication out of the house. And he essentially asked her to flush it down the toilet. And at that point, she had no reason to be suspicious, and so she gathered up all this medication and she flushed it down the toilet.
Several jailhouse snitches, as they're known, came forward and said that Martin had actually said to them that if he had killed his wife, he would have gotten away with it, that he wanted her out of his life, calling her derogatory names, saying things that essentially implicated himself in her murder while he was in jail for fraud.
There was just an overwhelming feeling of relief that we had proven our case, that the family would have some measure of justice, that they would have some measure of closure.
In 2017, Martin McNeil ending his life in prison. And so, for all the things that he had done, he only served a relatively short amount of time in prison before ending his life.
I think he viewed a life in prison as no life at all. I think that's probably what it came down to and why he chose to commit suicide.
I wonder about the timing. Oftentimes there's a series of appeals that happen after somebody is convicted. And it isn't uncommon when somebody is feeling suicidal or deciding that they're going to take control of their life in prison, and they're going to be the one to decide when they check out. It isn't uncommon for that to happen when their last appeal has been denied.
Why he simply didn't divorce Michelle is a question I still ask myself. But I think he didn't want to divorce her because of potential alimony. He also may have lost some of his reputation in the community if he divorced his wife to be with this other woman. And given his background, given his knowledge, he felt like he could get away with murder. It was an almost perfect murder, but at the end of the day, he was caught. He left too many clues behind